Hi, cousins. Today I have the honor and the privilege of meeting with a very special cousin who happens to host the biggest Dark Shadows podcast. That's right, Danielle Gelehrter, aka Penny Dreadful, from Terror at Collinwood. I'm so excited! Come on, let's head down to the back room at the Blue Whale.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So welcome to the back room at the Blue Whale.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me on.
It's my pleasure. I know that you're really, busy and you have a lot on your plate. And I thought, well, let me just ask, and it may be months from now before you're able to come join me, but I'm just going to throw it out there. And I'm so happy that, you were able to say, yeah, we can do it. So
Sure, yeah, thank you very much. As I said before we started recording, you're doing a great job with the show, and I love the vibe that you're creating, very welcoming vibe, and I love the videos, the fan videos you post, and your music that you include, guys' artwork in the first episode. It's a very fun show, and I think you're doing a great job. So it's a pleasure to be here with you. And yeah, I just got back from I've gone to visit my parents who are away, and I'm actually at their house right now. I'm house sitting for them. So I just got back, and the back to teaching. I teach college during the day, so but I had to finish up my pile of essays, and I knew I was going to have a few days where I was like, okay, I could do it during this time. So, but always exciting to talk about Dark Shadows.
yes, and that's one reason why I wanted to do this podcast, not just to just showcase my amazingly talented, awesome Dark Shadows family, but also to help other fans connect with each other. Because when I first started watching the show, I had just graduated high school and I caught it on sci-fi. And I was the only person like my age, the only person really that I knew of who was like really digging the show. My parents had kind of watched it. My mom had watched it in high school. My dad's mom and sister had, kind of watched it and everything. But I mean, they weren't really gonna sit down and watch it with me and talk about the show. It's like I would go grocery shopping with my mom and I'd be telling her all about, and there's this hand with magical powers in this box, and there's this and just going on about, whatever was going on in the episode I had just seen, and she just went and carried on shopping. So it's like I have nobody to talk to about this. And so when I first started going online and I found, the wonderful fan groups and message boards, and realized there's this whole community out there that loves this show as much as I do, and it's like, oh, I have found my people. So
Yes.
I kind of wanted to help with that, and to help my friends kind of connect with each other, because I have a lot of Dark Shadows friends that really don't maybe know of each other, or they know who people are, but they haven't actually met, or they've maybe only been to one or two events or no events. And so, like with Bobby, Bobby's only been to the one Dark Shadows event, and he's coming to this coming one. And I told him, I'm going to introduce you to so many people, and they're going to love you, and this is just going to be wonderful.
Oh, I
And
can't
so,
wait to meet him in person.
yes. Oh, and
He's
and
such a
he just
sweetheart.
He's so excited. He is, and I'm so excited. And we've been planning out like, all the things that we want to do and everything. And so, I like having this where it's like I can kind of help him put names to faces and things like that, because like some of my friends, he knows the names but he's not really too sure who they are, and so I want him to know, hey, when you see so and so, it's okay to talk to them, they're cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're both going to be there. I think it's going to be. They keep announcing guests, like they just announced Lisa Richards, and they just keep adding more guests to it. And I am going to be moderating some of the panels at the event. I don't know which ones yet, but it looks like there's going to be some really great programming. There are going to be vendors there too, screenings. I mean, it's like a festival, and this is really, from what I understand, from what they're announcing, this is going to be the last big Dark Shadows event. It's not the last Dark Shadows thing that ever, I think some people were kind of upset about that. It's not, I know that I'm sure Catherine is going to continue doing Lyndhurst events, of course. But this is the last big, I think, of Dan Curtis Holdings sanctioned big kind of festival-like event, supposedly. So if people can go, they should. I mean, this is going to be a big one. So
Yeah. And Catherine Lee Scott did just announce something going on at Lyndhurst.
yeah.
Now, are you going to go to that too?
That I don't know. I think, what did she say? It's in October, right? Is that when she said it
Oh,
is? Yeah, I think so.
I know it's afterwards. Yeah.
Oh, it's afterwards. Okay, yeah. Well, hopefully, if it depends if the stars align, we shall see. But I would like to if I can.
Awesome. And speaking of Lyndhurst, what were your first impressions of Lyndhurst and that property, and kind of being able to see that world of the Two Dark Shadows movies and be able to walk those grounds?
Oh gosh, well, I went years ago to Lyndhurst just to take some pictures and check it out. I think I was doing a Penny Dreadful appearance at, I think it was at the Icon convention in Long Island, I want to say. And I know we took a drive over to Sleepy Hollow because I wanted to see Sleepy Hollow. And I said, I have to go see to Lyndhurst. I have to go. So we went, and there was no event happening or anything like that. I just kind of walked around and took pictures. And it's really quite striking to look at. And of course, having grown up in New England, I had already seen Seaview Terrace several times and had been there. So it was cool to see the movie Collinwood. I mean, it's very much like a Gothic castle. I mean, that's what it is. The whole feel of it is, it's still kind of this brooding house, just like Collinwood is, but it has it's a colder kind of a look because of the stone exterior and just the whole look of it. It just looks more like a castle. But I loved it. It's really cool to see it in person, and then to actually go to an event there. I think the first time I went to an actual event at Lyndhurst, at the Lyndhurst estate itself, was only a couple of years ago, that I actually went to see Catherine there. Catherine and Mary Wallace were both there, and I met them in person and chatted with them, and they were wonderful. It was great getting
Mhm.
to meet them. I had been to two festivals prior to that, but I had not been to the actual Lyndhurst estate. It wasn't at the estate, it was like at a hotel, an offsite hotel. I went in 2006 and 2007. And that's where I met Amanda Desiree. I met her there. And I had known her from the Dark Shadows forums. She was Professor Stokes on there.
Mhm.
Midnight was there, Fran and Steve Shutt, who was Gothic on the forums, and all wonderful people. And that was a great time. It was cool I'm glad I actually got to go to a couple of the festivals. So I wanted
Mhm.
to go to the 50th one in 2016, but I got shut out. I took too long, I guess, to send my SAISY because they were still doing the self-addressed stamped envelope thing at that point. But it was sold out, and I should have still gone and just tried to get in anyway,
What?
but I probably would have been able to.
In the back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or a disguise, dressed like a Leviathan, maybe the.
Mhm. Yeah, Amanda Desiree is the first Dark Shadows family member that I met in person, and I met her from the boards, because I was on there too. And and just meeting someone that was like my age, that spoke my language, that knew what the hell I was talking about. I mean, that was amazing. That was an incredible experience, because so many of the Dark Shadows fans are older. There's a lot of people who watched it the first run. They ran home from school to watch it. And what's amazing is that this is a show that kind of transcends the generations, and younger and younger people are getting into it all the time, which is wonderful. You know,
Yeah,
and so
absolutely. It's
and
it's just the show that just keeps on attracting new people. I mean, it's just there's a whole Discord group with some of the folks that I've been had on my podcast, like Madeline and Tina and Max and several other folks, Annie, who are just, younger fans in their 20s that are huge Dark Shadows fan and just as passionate as the original, Run Home from School baby boomer Dark Shadows fans. So I'm kind of I'm also a second generation. I'm substantially older than you are, but I have also come to Dark Shadows as a second generation fan. I always say I'm like Maxwell Smart, missed it by that much because I was born in the early 70s, so the show had ended shortly, not long before I was born. So I got into it through, and my uncle Valdemar, who I often talk about on the podcast, he grew up, he came over with my family from Portugal when he was 9 or so in 1967 when they arrived, and he got into American pop culture, and Dark Shadows was one of the things he was a big fan of. So when I came around in the 70s, I mean, it was immediate, like he was a big monster kid too. And
Mhm.
he still likes that stuff. He's not as immersed in it anymore, but at that time he was. So he would always, talk about Barnabas and do imitations of Barnabas and the werewolf. And he would talk about all Boris Karloff and all of the great horror, classic horror films. But Dark Shadows was kind of the thing he would go back to a lot and tell me stories about and stuff. And he gave me his bubblegum cards, and that was actually the first visual I had of Dark Shadows were those bubblegum cards, the pink set and the green set. He had a whole bunch of them and he gave them all to me. And I was little and I was so scared of Barnabas, but I would look at the teeth, when I'd flip it over, it was so scary. Card number 11 still sends a chill down my spine. And I was fascinated by those cards, and I would look at them, those gray images of cobwebs and stuff. And he would tell me about the characters and stuff like that. He gave me his Famous Monsters number 59 with a Basil Gogos cover of Barnabas. So it was like I had already kind of a foundation before I actually watched the show, because my family all watched my mother's side of the family. They were watching it when it was on. So then when the VHS age came around, Uncle Val got a VCR in the early 80s and he got some like, 10th generation or something videotapes that were recorded from syndication of the introduction of Barnabas storyline and 1795. And that was how I experienced that for the first time. And it just really hooked me. It was even better than I imagined from all of the images. I was like transfixed by it. I couldn't wait to the next tape, right? For and then it ended, and right before Vicky comes back from 1795, and what an awful place to end it. It's
Oh
like
no.
Barnabas had already been cursed as a vampire by Angelique, and he was already a vampire at that point, and Vicky was on trial for witchcraft, but then it ends the tapes. But then not that long after, we found out that this local channel, commercial channel over the air channel, like a UHF channel called WCVX channel 58, and they were out of Cape Cod, Vineyard Haven in Cape Cod, and we found out they were running Dark Shadows. So I don't know if he reconnected the roof antenna or if he just got a new roof antenna, and to catch the signal so that we could watch it. And then they were airing it. They had switched the time slot a couple of times, but it was on at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just like in the 60s. And it was shortly after Adam was brought to life. So I only missed like a little gap there.
Mhm.
And Adam was brought to life, and they ran it all the way up to partway into 1970 parallel time, which is the rest of the syndication package. Because at the time, as you know, that first year and the last year of the show were not available. There was like the quest to get those. It was even a quest to get all of those other episodes released, but it was great to see that. And then that ended too. But luckily, I discovered the fandom in '86, so I was able to kind of find out what through the concordances, and that Kathy Rush used to sell, and Catherine Lee Scott's My Scrapbook Memories, like what happened, that the rest of it. And then MPI started releasing the tapes, and then that was a new golden age. It was MPI was releasing the tapes, Sci-Fi Channel was running it. The 91 series was coming out. That was a really exciting time to be a Dark Shadows fan because all this stuff was happening around Dark Shadows at that time. So it was cool to be and getting all those fanzines in the mail during that time, and the Shadowgram and things like that. It was cool, but it was like you too. Like I didn't know, uh, even though I was born not that long after the show ended, there was nobody in my class in my that knew what Dark Shadows was. In fact, I remember my fourth grade teacher asking the class. There was a kid in our class. His name was Jeff Collins, and she used to always call him Barnabas. And then she turned to the class. She says, "Does anybody know who Barnabas Collins is?" Nobody raised their hand except me. Of course, I was like, "Who? I know, I know, I know." And I said, "Oh, he's a vampire from Dark Shadows." She was delighted that I knew who Barnabas was. Nobody else in the class knew that, which is kind of mind-boggling considering what a phenomenon Dark Shadows was, right? If you think about how popular that show was in the late 60s and going into the early 70s. And then for just a few years later, like this whole group of kids didn't know what it was. It's kind of mind-boggling. Uh, and it was in syndication, but I guess, it was kind of spotty in terms of that. Whereas like you ask a kid of that age, what's Gilligan's Island? They're going to know what it is, or what's the Brady Bunch or something like that. But for some reason, even Star Trek, like Star Trek was on all over the place. But I think it's because it wasn't serialized. It was easier to just play any episode and kind of run it that way. And Dark Shadows is kind of unwieldy because of so many episodes, and it has to be played in order so that it follow the plot. So, but there were places that were certainly doing well with syndication, like New Jersey Network was the prime example there with that. But yeah, so that was kind of how I got into Dark Shadows, and but it is kind of mind-boggling, right? That's
Mhm.
why did so many people not know what it was? Luckily, there are plenty now. Thanks to the internet. I think with the internet age, that certainly raised awareness of it, right?
Mhm. Definitely, because when I first started watching, and like I say, I didn't really know anything about it, and so I went online, and when I'm interested in something, I want to find out everything I can.
Yep.
So I got on the internet and I looked, and it's like, I don't care if there's spoilers. I got to know, what is this? Who is Josette? What's going on? Because I came in the 1969 haunting of Collinwood with the ghost
Oh,
Quentin, and
yeah.
that hooked me. So I didn't know anything that had happened before. I didn't know who Victoria Winters was. I didn't know about 1795. I didn't know about any of this stuff. And so one of the really interesting things is when I started watching, and we went from the Ghost of Quentin to 1897, and there was this whole new cast of characters. It was like, okay, this is great because now we're starting from the beginning of something, so I can really know who these characters are, because I was still trying to kind of figure it out with the modern day people at Collinwood.
Okay.
With 1897, it was like, okay, you know exactly who everyone is. And so that was just kind of wonderful to really start there
Yeah.
and get a feel for this time and these people. And there were still a lot of things I didn't understand. And like when Angelique comes in, it was like, who is she? Because I had a vague idea who she was, from going online and reading about her. But I just thought, this is the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen. I love her attitude. I love everything about her. And I mean, I didn't really know everything that she had kind of done in the past and everything, but it didn't matter because I'm just like, I love this chick. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I loved her sparring with Laura. The two of
Yeah.
them together was just like, wow. You know,
Dynamite.
and
Yeah.
and I didn't know anything about the original Laura from before. I only knew this Laura.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that was great too, because in 1897, that Laura has so much more kind of backstory and mythology, and it really, with that Phoenix character, really gives it some meat to it, because in the original Laura the Phoenix storyline, it's all very vague, and you don't
it
really
is.
know.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, where did she come from? What can she do? And with the 1897, and you bring in Egyptian mythology, and there was just so much more kind of background to it, that I enjoyed it so much more, that by the time I went around and back again and watched the original Phoenix, I was like, okay, it's good, but I like the other Laura better.
I love the Laura storyline too, but it informs. I think like watching the 1897 Laura run helps to enrich one's viewing of the pre-Barnabas Laura, because then you get some background and the whole Egyptian
Mhm.
aspect to it and a lot of that. So that helps to kind of. I think that does actually enrich that, because that's how I watched it too. I watched 1897 before I saw, because those weren't available until MPI. Well, they were showing it on Sci-Fi too, but I bought the MPI tapes and I was able to watch the Laura storyline there. So that was kind of cool seeing it that way. Although I already knew what happened because of the fandom stuff that I
Mhm.
mentioned, and Catherine's book. And part of me
Mhm.
wishes, like sometimes I look back and I go, I kind of wish I hadn't read that. There's that synopsis of the entire series in
Mhm.
the book, and I did read that, and I was still watching it on channel 58 at that point, so it did spoil some pretty major stuff, which is fine. But there are a couple of things I wish it hadn't spoiled, like like the 1840 with Barnabas and Angelique. Like, wow, that
Mhm.
turns out like the ultimate resolution of that and that storyline. Wow, that's great. I remember my jaw dropping when I read that. That was so unexpected, because that my uncle had not. I don't think he remembered or hadn't. He didn't spoil
Mhm.
that. He had a couple of things he had told me about, like when Victor Fenn-Gibbon showed up and he said, "Oh, Count Potofi," and I was like,
Mhm.
"What's Count Potofi?" He said, "Oh yeah, yeah, I think so." But so he had already let the cat out of the bag there. So, but yeah, it was cool finally getting to see those pre-Barnabas episodes in that last year of the show too. Like it was I love the pre-Barnabas episodes. I know a lot of people are not as like they are slower. The storyline is slower, but I like seeing how those characters be like the beginnings of those characters, because it's very focused on Vicky and Roger and Elizabeth and Burke and David and Carolyn. So you get that nice background with those characters, and you see how they developed too
Mhm.
by the time we get to Barnabas. So those characters have evolved, and it's interesting how that happens with a lot of the Dark Shadows characters who start as the villains, the
Mhm.
antagonists, they sort of become these kind of anti-heroes in a lot of ways. And
Mhm.
it's fun seeing that development, even for not so much for like she's always a good person, but like Roger, David,
Roger.
yeah, Carolyn, they all have these they're very troubled people. So, and Liz is troubled too, but she always tries to do the right thing. Uh,
Mhm.
Not always with Roger, alas, but but he grows, he does.
Mhm. I really enjoyed Roger in kind of that baddie role, and you don't really
Yeah.
see that again until 1970 Parallel Time, that he gets to do kind of more of that. And but
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant, and I love those scenes with him and Vicky, and he is very much just kind of like this looming threat, and it's like, do I trust him? Do I not trust him? What's going on? And I mean, just that whole pre-Barnabas storyline is it's very atmospheric. It is very gothic, and it has some truly, genuinely like chilling scenes. The scene where Vicky hears the crying at night, I
Yeah.
got goosebumps, and it's
Oh,
never explained.
no.
And that's the thing, they never explain it, which
Yeah.
which is kind of creepy too. But I mean, the whole thing with the ghost of Josette, and coming out of the painting, and going around
Yes.
the columns, and I mean that's wonderfully spooky.
It really is. It's like almost like footage from a paranormal show.
Hmm.
It's like this. We set up a camera, and this is what we caught. And you see,
Hmm.
it just looks. It has that whole feel to it. It's very. It's chilling. It's a very eerie kind of a scene with Josette running around the columns and coming out of the painting, and it's really cool stuff that they were doing back then. And I was talking to a friend who thought the pre-Barnabas wasn't supernatural at all. I said, oh no, it is. There's a lot of supernatural stuff from early on. And then of course, Laura, and you mentioned parallel time, which I love parallel time too.
Mhm.
And it's fun seeing, it's great that you mentioned Roger, because that is like the Roger that did not change from what we saw in pre-Barnabas. That's if that Roger had not, the things in his life had not happened to change the trajectory of his moral compass,
Mhm.
that could have been what Roger had become. But by the time, but our Roger changed, he became a better person. He's, saves Carolyn during the Leviathan storyline. Like he does something
Mhm.
brave, and and he cares about his shows. Cares about his son, and he cares about his family. And it's like, oh, that's it. It's the parallel time. Roger lacks a lot of those qualities because he hasn't had the same experiences. So I enjoy looking at parallel time because it is a distinct version of Roger, and all of those characters are distinct and different. Some are a little closer than others to our time band's characters,
Mhm.
but it's yeah, fun to look at. I love all the Dark Shadow stories. There's no Dark Shadow storyline that I don't like. I have nothing but love for all of those storylines. Some I like more than others, granted, but
Mhm.
there are none that I would say I don't like that storyline. Never.
Yeah, I think with all of them, I mean, there are some that I don't particularly care for, but have wonderful moments in them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a big fan of the Leviathan storyline, but
Mhm.
there's some wonderful stuff in the Leviathan storyline, and I love the stuff with with Angelique, and here's you think, okay, she's gonna have this wonderful kind of happy ending with Sky, and then Sky turns out to be this horrible Leviathan loser, and
Yeah. 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 I love Leviathans. It's just so weird. And I love that they tried to do H.P. Lovecraft on Dark Shadows. And I know it's probably the least popular storyline. It's a lot of people were saying it was the jump the shark moment for Dark Shadows. And remember that website they had Jump the Shark,
Mhm.
and it was like all the TV shows people would vote for. The Leviathans by far had the most
Mhm.
votes. But I love that they tried to do the Dunwich horror and Dark Shadows. It's so strange, and there's a very unsettling quality about that storyline that I enjoyed. And I know and one thing I think that I don't like, and that I think is a big uh, negative reaction moment for a lot of fans, was how Barnabas was altered when he
Mhm.
first started, because he was very cold at the beginning
Mhm.
of the story. He was sinister. Barnabas could always do bad things. I mean, but he was always kind of passionate and
Mhm.
impulsive in a lot of ways, but this was a sort of a very cold
Mhm.
Barnabas. It was a very different take on the character. And I think a lot of people really rejected that, because by that time he was sort of this anti-hero kind of lead. He was a
Mhm.
protagonist of the show. So, but they kind of course corrected that. And it was fun to see that too, though. It's like, oh wow, this is messed up. Barnabas is like this devoid of any caring about Julia or anybody in the family. He's just like he's on the Leviathan mission now. But I loved all of the cultists and with the Oberon and Hazel with the robes, and Jeb. I loved Jeb. I know Jeb, the cheap insufferable pig. Jeb Hawks. Chris Pennock is so much fun to watch. It's not my
Mhm.
favorite of his roles, but I did enjoy him as Jeb. Uh, and the monster in the room, the creature in the room breathing. I remember as a kid or a teen, I was a teenager by then when that was on, wishing that I could see what does that thing look
Mhm.
like? What is, it's like nothing you can imagine, but it's like, but what does it look like? I imagine there must be some serpentine kind of quality aspect to it, because their logo is that Naga symbol. So there
Mhm.
must be evocative of some kind of sure. So that could be a challenge for the fan artists listening to your show.
Mhm.
Or what do you think the Leviathan is?
Definitely. My best friend Jeannie, she had a little stuffed Cthulhu, and she had brought it to one of the conventions, and Chris Pennick took a picture with it because she was like, "Would you take a picture with this?"
I love it. I love it. I love that.
Mhm.
I wonder if Chris read Lovecraft after that, doing that storyline. I wonder if he did.
Possible, yeah. But yeah, there's so many, and the thing with the different storylines too is like I think it's great for fan fiction writers because we can change the things we don't like. We know
Sure.
there's parallel time. They can just go through another door in the East Wing, and this is what happens instead. You
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
and so that's the great thing about like with the whole parallel time in this Dark Shadows universe is we don't know how many parallel times there are. Anything could happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. In fact, do you think that 19, this is a question I ask sometimes. Do you think 1970 parallel time is the same time band as 1841 parallel time? Is that the past of what we see in 1970, or is that a different time band that they entered in that room?
See, that's the thing. I don't know because it's like it could be. I think it could be
Yeah.
because the history is so kind of different that it's
Yeah,
like, okay, I could see where that could like fit in and that could be, a
yeah.
continuation of that, band of parallel time, but I don't know. And I have a kind of an odd theory, that 1840 storyline, even though they don't call it parallel time, I think there must be something going on with the Band of Parallel Time because if you remember when they were haunted by the ghost of Gerard and they're talking about things that happen and oh and the kids and Daphne and they love her and this and that and then we get to 1840 and it's like these kids don't seem very affectionate towards Daphne and
Yeah.
there's other kind of little things too that kind of make me wonder like okay something was changed here and so maybe there's more to explore with that whole kind of 1840 1970, maybe there were, parallel bands of time. And
Yeah, it doesn't line up. You're right.
Mhm,
That does not line up with what happens during summer 1970. When we go to 1840, a lot of what they said in summer 1970, it's not there. It's
mhm,
totally different. So I think at that point, if we're looking at it from the story within the story world, I think at that point there has been so much time travel and entering into parallel universes, going to the future, the past. I think that the timelines are breaking down. Like they're seeping into one another. I think there's some of that is happening,
mhm,
where time is kind of becoming uh, hazy. The time bands are kind of leaking into one another because it's so uh, it doesn't line up. There's some really weird stuff happening there. So,
mhm,
which I think would have been an interesting storyline to do, where
mhm,
all of the meddling in time has resulted in a potential major catastrophe, that they would have to avert, again.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a great challenge for fan fiction writers is maybe work on a project like that. What I would love to see is do you remember those choose your own adventure books
Oh
and
yeah,
all
yeah,
about dark shadows and and you could do that and then that way you could kind of make your own stories with all of these different kind of the bands of time and the different characters and the different things that happen and I think that would be fun.
I think that's a great idea. I think somebody should do a choose your own adventure book for Dark Shadows. Absolutely. Hermes Press, get on that.
and that makes me think too speaking of books there's been so many wonderful books about dark shadows not just by Catherine Lee Scott but you have other writers too the that Curse of Dark Shadows that just came out Patrick McRae's Dark Shadows Daybook and Daybook Unbound and there's people still writing about this show you know
Yeah,
and I think that's something that fans get so excited about to be able to go into a bookstore and see something with dark shadows and it was like oh yes I
yeah,
think I think it's really exciting I'd
it
love to.
really is. And this year we have several books coming. I just had Patty Karapinar on Terror at
Mhm.
Collinwood
We
talk
saw
about,
that.
yeah, Cy Tomashoff book, which
Mhm.
is really great. And speaking as someone who actually got a sneak peek at the proof for it, It's sensational. Patty did a great job. She just the layout of it, the research she did, it's filled with photos, blueprints, sketches, and just interview snippets to just really help illustrate all of the different aspects of what Cy Tomashoff did throughout his
Mhm.
career, but with a major focus on Dark Shadows. The bulk of the book is Dark Shadows, with bookended from with his pre-Dark Shadows and post-Dark Shadows years. It's real definitely a must-have for fans because his sets were such an integral part of the show.
Mhm.
And then John Logan and Catherine Lee Scott are doing the Dark Shadows Legacy book,
Mhm.
which I was fortunate enough to also have contributed to that. Actually, wrote a couple of pieces for that, and it's going to be great. I've seen the cover, unbelievable. I can't say much about it, but it's really cool. And from what I know, what's going to be in there, it's going to be great. Definitely something fans are going to want. Rich Handley, and Aaliyah Shockley Rich wrote a book. Aaliyah's doing the artwork for it. Unbelievable what that book is going to. And that he has not announced yet, so I can't say much about other than he's doing a book, but it's awesome. It's going to be awesome. I mean, just like the amount of research he did is staggering for what this book is going to be. So that's going to be coming. And we have Daytime Gothic 2 coming out.
Mhm.
Stuart Manning is doing Dark Shadows Noir that Jim Pierce
Uh-huh.
is doing, which is a coffee table book with black and white photography from Dark Shadows, some rare photos in there too. That's going to be from Hermes Press as well. So we have quite a few things coming our way this year for the 60th, plus other things I'm sure that have not been announced yet. So
Wonderful. Would now you have a background in creative writing? Would you ever think about doing a book on Dark Shadows or Dark Shadows fandom or anything
I
like
have thought about writing a book about Dark Shadow, not a fiction book, but a nonfiction book
that?
that I've thought about writing because I don't know, for years, and I haven't. It's difficult to find the time, but I've thought for years of doing something that was a really geeky, but because I love speculating about like what we were just doing about the
Mhm.
time band, parallel time, whether 1840 is a parallel time or influenced by parallel time, like speculation about Dark Shadows storylines, and which I have done in several episodes on things like that, like uh, things like once Barnabas turns back into a vampire, does what happens to Adam? Like, where's the link between? Like, I love figuring out, taking the pieces and trying to put something together that makes sense with spackling. I call it. I'd love to do a book about that with essays like Warren. I don't know if you ever read Warren Otson's essays that were in the back of some of those concordances, but he would write full-length essays about these kinds of topics and explore them.
Mhm.
And I love that idea of just writing some of the essays, but also getting other fans to write those types of essays and having a
Mhm.
collection, an anthology of essays where it's all speculation about the storylines and things that maybe don't make as much sense, like how does that work? And trying to figure it out. I love stuff like that. And if people haven't read Warren Otzon, he passed away sadly years ago. He was a brilliant artist and he was an excellent writer too. And if you pick up like the 1840 Concordance or the 1970 Parallel Time Concordance, and even in the world of Dark Shadows, he would write articles like that. And that was all, every time I would read one of those, I would get inspired to want to write something like that. Dale Clark used to do that in Inside the Old House too, the fan page, it was called, where people would write essays of that nature. It's just always fun to kind of speculate on things like that. So that's probably what
Mhm.
I would do. If I were going to do something Dark Shadows wise, it would be that. There was a second thing, which is dark, and I just recorded a podcast episode in this territory, but it's Dark Shadows in context in terms of the Gothic horror genre, and all of these sources that were used in Dark Shadows and how, because sometimes most Dark Shadows fans like spooky stuff, but I have
Mhm.
encountered some fans that are just completely uninterested or unfamiliar with the source material that fed Dark Shadows, which is mind-boggling to me. That's like why, how? So writing something like that where it's like dark shadows within the context of the Gothic and the history of Gothic literature, Gothic horror, Gothic romance, and cinema too, as well, film, and kind of placing it within, and theater as well, and placing it within that context, I think would be an interesting thing to write about. But it's maybe when I retire someday that I'll do that. Or maybe somebody else will do it.
No, it was like one of the things that like I love about say the well about the 1970 parallel time is it's basically Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, which I
Yeah.
love, you
Yep.
know. And I love that, here you have this Gothic show really kind of getting back to those Gothic roots. And it's like, yes, they, would kind of branch out and do their own kind of crazy things. And they'd go off in different time periods and everything. But I love that when they bring us to this new uh, timeline, even though they have these characters that are familiar yet unfamiliar, the story itself is somewhat familiar. And I think that makes it so enjoyable to see these characters in these roles that we know who they're supposed to be, kind of, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like I love Hoffman, the housekeeper. I thought that was
Oh,
brilliant.
right.
And I,
Yeah.
I just I adore Grayson Hall, and to kind of give her a role like that, I just thought was just delicious. I
Oh,
love it.
Mrs. Danvers. I mean, she was fantastic, absolutely
Mhm.
fantastic, chilling, great, great role for her. And I love that they did Rebecca. And I've someone asked me recently about parallel time. I said, well, they do Rebecca and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde
Mhm.
concurrently, and they were just like, what? Yes, it's the same time at the same going on concurrently, and it's so cool that they even that far into the series that they're still like, yo, we haven't done these yet. Let's do these stories and put them in a parallel universe, which is
Mhm.
crazy that they did that. But I love it, and even some of those shots they do are evocative of the shots Hitchcock did in the
Mhm.
film adaptation of Rebecca. Like the Dutch angle with with the window and such.
Mhm.
Some of that stuff was right out of that film. So I love that they did that. And they just continued right on to the end. I mean, they did the lottery at the end, Wuthering Heights at the end.
Mhm.
So just kept on
Yeah.
going. So, and yeah, and I love all that stuff. But it's still those, I love those storylines. My favorites, though, are probably 1897,
Mhm.
introduction of Barnabas, that whole run with Barnabas and Maggie Evans and Julia, all of that early Barnabas stuff, and 1795. I love too. I adore 1795. I love the Ghost of Quentin and the werewolf storyline so much. And 1995, it only lasts 2 weeks, but it's like an ice pick to your heart because you see it and it's like, oh my God, what
Mhm.
happened? It's so shocking to
Mhm.
1995. And I love that one too. I love them all, but those are probably my like top five, I would say. But I love it. And Adam, I noticed, gets a lot of the Adam and Eve storyline, which I always enjoyed. And I notice online in the online community, like a lot of that one gets a lot of flack. But I dig that storyline. I think it's cool. Does go on for quite a while. I probably could have been
Yeah.
a
That,
little.
that that's the thing for me is just it seems to kind of drag on kind of too long, and it's like get with it, get to the action here, get to the story. It just seems
Yeah,
they could have utilized the time better or something. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
It's like it's almost but not quite. It just
yeah.
they could have done it better, but it's not a bad storyline. There's so many great things there.
Yeah, it's fun. There's so much fun stuff in that storyline, but yeah, it could have been a bit tighter. 1841 parallel time too is like I enjoy it. I like it, but it's so disconnected from our Dark Shadows, from our Collinwood. I feel like it's not, it's so, it's like none of our characters are there. Like even 1970 parallel time, Barnabas was there, and then Julia was there. But 1841, it's like, okay, let's go here now. So, but I loved all the characters and the fact that they did Wuthering Heights and the lottery, which is
Mhm.
wild that they would even combine those two ideas into a storyline. Uh, and seeing Jonathan Frid play a different character and Catherine and Lara Parker,
Mhm.
really cool. So I enjoyed it quite a bit, but it's
Mhm.
I wish that it had been tethered more to our
Mhm.
main story of Dark Shadows, you know.
Mhm. The way that I think of the 1841 parallel time storyline is that it is a an exercise for the actors, and it's a chance for them to kind of let loose and show that they can, what they can do when they're not kind of, penned into these certain characters. And
Yeah.
because I mean, even though Dark Shadows itself, it was kind of like a repertory theater, and you would have different actors playing different characters each storyline, the fact that 1841 really is so different,
Yeah.
I think is just kind of fascinating because they're brilliant actors. Everyone on that show was just fabulous. And sometimes they would be maybe a bit kind of typecast, or you'd have people that would only think of them one way or another. And here it's kind of like, no, look, they can do this. Isn't this
Yeah.
cool?
Yes, yeah, totally. Yep, exactly. That's a great way to look at it, and uh getting to see them and those inhabit those new roles is really fun. And I'm sure it was really fun for them too, because it's like, oh, we get to do something different,
Mhm.
Uh, particularly, I think Lara and Jonathan got a chance to really do something that they, have been those Barnabas and Angelique for so long. It's like, oh, this is a completely different thing now. Uh, so yeah, that was fun to see.
Mhm. Yeah. And going back a minute, because you were talking about Patty's book about Cy Thomashoff, I got so excited when I watched that episode the other day because I just think it's going to be absolutely wonderful. And one of the best memories I have is at the Tim Burton film that they showed at the Vista Theater. I was sitting next to Cy Thomashoff, and
No way. Wow. Oh, that's so cool.
yeah,
Wow.
and so kind of in between the films, because they had House of Dark Shadows and then they had the film, and we were talking about Seaview Terrace, we were talking about his sets, and I actually had pictures on my phone from the last visit I had been at Seaview Terrace, and I was showing him the pictures, and he was like, yeah, the wood paneling and this and that, and so he was kind of talking to me about the inspiration taken from Seaview Terrace and some of the sets and things like that. And so that was just wonderful. I
Yeah,
just really
that's
enjoyed
so cool. Oh, I love that. That's really cool that you got to
it.
talk to him about that and
Mhm.
show pictures. Oh my gosh. Sit with him. That's so cool. Yeah. Oh, I
Mhm.
love that. What did he think of the Tim Burton movie?
I don't think he was impressed, but he liked the set, especially the
I
one
like
set
the sets
with the
too. I like,
rafters and
yeah.
because he said, "Oh yeah, that's nice. I like with the rafters." And I said, "Yeah, it's a pretty cool set."
Yeah.
So we looked at the scenery.
Tim Burton's films are always visually stunning. I mean,
Mhm.
the sets look cool, and I love that Collinwood actually. The exterior of it was very evocative of Seaview Terrace. You look at it, it's like, oh, it does look like Collinwood, and the interiors. I think it maybe leaned a little too heavily on the nautical stuff. I mean, it was cool, but it was like the octopus chandelier. I don't know if the Collins family would have something like that, but that was very Tim Burtonish. But it was like overall, I think the visual design of the film was fantastic. It was
Mhm.
cool to see Collinsport and what it
Mhm.
the whole town and everything like that. It's just for me, it was the tone of the film that
Mhm.
was rather off-putting, but
The first 5 minutes were great. You know,
totally, yes.
that got everybody excited. When we were watching in the theater, we're like, okay, this is going to be great. And then it was like, I think we all jumped off Widow's Hill.
Yep, yes, yep,
Like,
yep,
no.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, yes. And people still get mad at me when I make talk about, I try to be respectful, but I
Mhm.
also want to express my opinion. And I have definitely have issues with the choice to go in that direction with the script. And the original script by John August, at least it was not a comedy. I did a two-part
Mhm.
episode
I
with
saw
Mel.
that. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it was, and the script was overstuffed with too much stuff, and there were definitely choices I did not like, but at least it was not a fish out of water comedy,
Mhm.
which is what the Burton film ultimately was. And I was just like, why do, if you guys love Dark Shadows, which they do, I've talked to
Mhm.
people that know Tim Burton and Johnny Depp, and
Mhm.
especially Johnny Depp, but Tim Burton too, big Dark Shadows fans. In fact, I have a friend who had lunch with Tim Burton and said, "Oh, he loves Dark Shadows." But it's like, why did you guys do this? Like, I would love to get them both on the podcast, which I know will never happen. I know
Yeah.
it'll never
Oh.
happen, but if they ever did it, I would be like, why did you choose
Mhm.
to go in that direction? Like, that's, as fans,
Mhm.
it's like spooky and gothic. Like, why are you, did you do a comedy? I would love to know what, like, why. I've heard it also, it was the studio that was pushing in that
Mhm.
direction, that was pushing them to do it. But they were, Burton and Depp were such a powerful duo at that point. They could have just said, no, we're not doing that. So they must have gotten on board with that. So I don't know why, but uh, I don't know. I'm glad Barnabas had bangs, though. That was cool.
Yeah. That's a nice touch.
Red Cross didn't have bangs, so
Mhm. But speaking of the 1991 series, I mean, how cool is that at the event coming up that not only are we going to do the bus trip there, but Joanna Going is going to do the tour.
yeah, that's awesome. It's really, you're getting a 91 series actor to
Mhm.
lead the tour, to be on the tour with everyone at the Greystone Mansion. That's really cool. And I hear she's a sweetheart. I hear she's a really nice person. And she's going to be there. Roy Thinnes is going to be there. And Rebecca Stab, who played Daphne Collins,
Daphne. Mhm.
is going to be there, and maybe more people too. There might be more 91 folks coming. So it's really cool. Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
it's.
Interesting. You saw Grace. You were there last
Mhm.
remembrance, I know. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, that it's a cool, also a cool mansion.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really cool, and it's been used in so many things, and it's got its own really cool history. When we went at the last event, and I was on the bus with Richard Halpern, and he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna tell you all the story, when we get there." And so we got there, and he was kind of telling everyone about the murder and the story and everything. And he's such a great storyteller, and so that was really cool too. To actually like be there and kind of, hear this history.
Yeah, yeah, Richard. Yeah, I'm sure he did a great job of like
Mhm.
leading that, and so it's explaining everything. I didn't know there was a murder that took place there. I didn't even know about that.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't remember the specifics, but you can look it up.
Yeah,
It's
wow.
online, and there was a murder there.
Wow. Yikes. Uh, so, well, can't Collinwood without something like that happening, I guess. But yeah, that's cool that they're doing the tour there, and that a 91 series actor is going to be going on it. But yeah, exciting. I don't think I'm not going to be able actually be on that tour. I have plans off site on the Sunday, but I'll be there Friday and Saturday. Probably Sunday night too. Why by the just hang out at the hotel or something at night in the nighttime.
So, while we're talking about houses and atmosphere and all of that, you sent me the video "Drunk Shadows" where you were outside the Seaview Terrace, and Penny Dreadful Shilling Stalkers
I'm
goes.
so sorry. I think
I love it.
I really edited that down. I was like, this is way too long, but thank you.
I love it, and I'm going to show it on this episode later on when I do the family fanfare segment. I'll put it in there so everyone can see. But what were your first impressions going to Seaview Terrace and actually being able to go inside the house? Because I know you had been outside the house several times, but what did you think going in the first time?
I was awestruck when I walked in because it was Bob Issel who runs well, used to do the Dark Shadows fan parties there, and he welcomed me and I knew Bob from online because I used to buy stuff from Bob, CDs and things like that, and he welcomed me. He's at the historic main entrance to the house, and it was the big wooden door,
Mhm.
and he opened the door, and I walked into that great hall, and it was breathtaking. I mean, just talk about something that looks like out of medieval times. It was just this big huge arch ceiling with this, the marble staircase on the side and all of it's just, it doesn't look like Collinwood from the TV show. There are
Mhm.
elements of it that the wood paneling, for example, as you pointed out, that certain things like that, or the stained glass windows, like things like that, that Cy Thomas Schaaf clearly took inspiration from, but it looks totally different. That main hall looks with that big chandelier and stuff. And it was cool to get a tour. I got the grand tour of the house and saw the house, and then subsequently Jeff Kenny, took us on a tour of the attic, the attics, plural. That saw Quentin's painting up there, the Dorian Gray painting up in the attic, and the basement too. It was cool. It was really, really
Mhm.
cool to see the inside of that place.
Yeah, when I went the first time to one of Bob's parties, they actually had they were kind of doing like a little skit, and they were doing kind of a little character interaction because Guy was dressed as Matthew Morgan, and Nina was dressed as Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, and she looked just like her. The first time I saw Nina, and she had this beautiful, I think it was like a velvet dress and pearls, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's Elizabeth Collins Stoddard. And so that was amazing, just walking in through those doors and like I'm at Collinwood. And then later we did what they called the virgin ceremony.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you did that. And
Oh
so
yes.
we went down, and my dearest Judy, she took me by the hand, and I had my friend Tay by the hand, and I think he was holding Walter Down's hand, and we all kind of walked down the lawn, and and I can still hear Bob saying, "Okay, virgins, open your eyes," and you turn around, and the music's playing, and there's this house, and it was such a magical moment because I mean, even though we'd seen the outside of the house, earlier and during the day and everything, but it's such an amazing experience to be there as a group, as night falls with the music playing and the lights are on in the house, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm at Collinwood.
Yeah.
It's magical. It really
It
is.
really is. Yeah, it's cool. It's so cool. And it was all, yeah, like you said, it was all, the house was all lit up and with these weird colors. And Bob did they played the Collinwood theme, and Bob did
Hmm.
that whole, his little spiel that he did.
Hmm.
And then I remember the windows were lit up in red too. It was
Hmm.
creepy. It was super cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
And staying overnight was wild too. To
Hmm.
stay in the house was an experience in and of itself. It was just really like kind of surreal. Like,
Hmm.
how am I here? Like,
Yeah.
it was pretty cool. So yeah. Uh, and unfortunately, the house, well, fortunately for the new owner, who seems like an interesting person, he's an artist. And he's into like paranormal stuff too. I'm like, well, this is kind of the perfect person. Somebody's going to buy Collinwood. At least it's somebody who's, kind of cool, seems kind of cool. And from my understanding, he's going to, restore it. Part of his art is restoring, but to its original condition, which I'm glad because it does need work. Uh,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, that does mean that the fan parties are over. So
Mhm.
that's not happening anymore. But uh,
Mm.
they were
Sad.
fun. It was fun. My favorite part of it, but it was cool being in Collinwood. Like I loved being in
Mhm.
Collinwood. It was fun to see, but it was really seeing everybody and just
Yeah.
and basically having a party.
Mhm.
Every so often you get together and have a party and have
Mhm.
fun, hang out, and that to me was probably the best part of it. And I'm sure that that will continue, even if
Mhm.
it's not at Seaview, it probably will
Yeah.
be somewhere else. So
And whenever I would go, I would tell people I'm going to a family reunion because basically that's what it was. It's a family reunion with all your cousins.
yeah, right,
You know,
right, right. Yeah,
and,
yep,
that's
exactly. Yeah. It's
wonderful.
a lot of camaraderie. Everybody's so nice. I
Mhm.
never had any uh negative feelings there or anything. Like
Mhm.
everybody's just so fun and friendly and
Mhm.
joking around and in a good mood. And it's yeah, I've thought it was really great. And Bob would do fun events like
Mhm.
you have a raffle
Mhm.
and then usually there was like a talent show and
Mhm.
what else? Costume. Usually it was a party, theme party, costume
Well,
party,
mhm.
yeah, or some other theme that he would come up with. So games. We had
Mhm.
bingo, it was Dark Shadows bingo, I think we played.
Yeah. Barnabas Says, playing Barnabas Says.
Yeah. I heard that mentioned, but I don't think we got to play that one. How does that one go?
Oh, so it's like Simon Says, but it's
Okay.
Barnabas Says.
Barnabas says, Barnabas commands you to.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So, yeah, that was fun. And that's where I met a lot of those folks, though. I had known from the fanzines and everything their names, but I had not met them in person, like Guy and Bob and Helen and several Jimmy Hutchinson, several of those folks that I had heard of over the years, not met in person. So, but hopefully they'll all be at the 60th anniversary. I
I
hope.
hope so. I think most of them are going to. I don't know about Jimmy. I haven't talked to him lately, but hopefully he goes because he
Yeah,
gives the best hugs, and I can't wait to see him again.
he does. He does. And he always gives me a hard time, but it's very entertaining. When he sees me, he kind of sort of scowls at me. It was Miss Dreadful. In that voice, he has such a great voice. But yeah, he's not on social media anymore. I think his club still is, but he's his social media account is down. But hopefully he'll go. It's always a good time seeing Jimmy.
Yeah, and hopefully I can get a hold of him to get him on here. There's so many people that I want to have on here that I've been talking to, and we haven't really set up a time yet, like Joe Escobar and Bob. Bob was on vacation when I asked him, but he's back now. And bunch of people, uh, Charles Ellis, and I mean, just so many of my dear friends that I can't
Yeah.
wait to get on here.
Charles, I've had Charles on too, and
Mhm.
he's another one I met actually. I remember him from when I was at the festival because he was wearing the turban, the Johnny Carson character. I do remember him from that. Yeah, he's a trip. Charles is fun. Yeah, lots of so many. There's so many Dark Shadows. I mean, you just go in these Facebook groups. I mean, there are thousands of
Mhm.
people in there, and I get asked a lot by people come on the podcast, which I appreciate. But it's like I can only do so many of the episodes. I can't, unfortunately, can't do. But I'm hoping what I'm planning to do, which is what I did at the Remembrance event, and which I used to do at Seaview, is bring my recorder and
Mhm.
I can walk around and grab a bunch of interviews and put them together as a single episode for the 60th, which I'm hoping to do. I don't know how busy they're going to keep me doing the panels, but hopefully I'll get
Mhm.
time to, because I'd like to grab interviews with fans. So if you see me at the walking around with a recorder at the Remembrance event, if you want to be interviewed, come over and I'll chit chat with you.
Now, are you going to have any kind of merch available for Terror at Collinwood or Penny Dreadful Shilling Shockers at the event? Are you going to do anything?
I will not have a table, but I am going to
Mhm.
bring, I'll usually bring stickers and hand them out to people. So the Tara Collinwood stickers and they're postcards too, which I think they're going to give out to people at the event, but no merchandise. But the
Mhm.
week after the 60th, there's another event called Monsterama, which
Mhm.
is going to be happening in Atlanta. And that is kind of a mini 60th. It's kind of the chaser for the Dark Shadow 60th because they're doing Catherine Lee Scott's going to be there, James Storm is going to be there, Jeff Thompson is going to be there. I'm going to be there as Penny Dreadful. So I will have a table at that event. I'm a guest at that event, and I will have some dark Shilling Shockers stuff, mostly DVDs, photos. I'll have signed photos. I'll have so you can line your bird cage with that. I'll have t-shirts, mostly Shilling Shockers. I will have some. I don't have most of my Terror at Collinwood stuff is on TeePublic.
Mhm.
So I probably won't have, in terms of t-shirts, I probably won't have Terror at Collinwood shirts, but I always bring the stickers and the postcards with me, and I will give those. If you come to my table at Monsterama and you tell me you listen to Terror at Collinwood, you get a sticker, maybe two stickers.
And those stickers are great because I was just thinking the other day, so many people are going to be flying in for this event, and a sticker is something that you can put on your luggage, you can put on your laptop, and
There
that
you
way, hey, this is mine.
there you go. They're also water resistant. I try to get the water resistant ones, so some people put them on their cars even.
Mhm.
I
Oh,
know Guy had one on his car for a while, so that was
mhm.
cool. Cause it's like, hey, Guy, you put your sticker, put the Tara Collinwood sticker on your car, cool. But yeah, they're yeah. So coming over, say hello. Are you going to be at Monsterama or?
I'm not. No, this is going to be the only traveling I get to do for a while.
Yeah,
I just moved into this new house with my brother a few months ago, and we're settling in. So I'm
yeah,
not going to be able to do a whole lot of traveling.
yeah. It's a lot, and I'm not. I kind of. I mean, I'm excited about it, but I'm also like, whoa, I'm gonna be flying a lot, and then in September I'm gonna be going to another event in September, so I'm gonna be jet setting, I guess, going everywhere. And I don't really like to fly too much, but
Mhm.
but it's but I hear and it's expensive. It gets expensive after like to all these places, which I get. I know that's the number one thing. A lot of some fans are saying they can't afford to go out, or some people are older, they can't afford to go, or they're health wise they can't travel, which I feel bad for those folks that want to go to the 60th and they can't for whatever reason. So but I'm sure people are going to post a lot of pictures and things like that. So,
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up pictures, because one thing that I do in each episode, towards the end of the episode, I have a memorial segment. And for this episode, I am doing that for Magoo, for you. And, I was just thinking, I don't have a lot of pictures of my friends. And every time you go to these events, you think, oh, I took so many pictures. And then you get home and you're like, oh, I didn't really take a lot of pictures. I don't have pictures with so and so, or I don't have pictures of this. So I just want to tell everybody, please take pictures. If you think you have enough, you don't. Take pictures, take as many pictures as you can, because you're really gonna um, appreciate that you took pictures.
yeah, definitely. And thank you for doing the tribute to Magoo, who went to one of the two Dark Shadows festivals I went to. He went to the first one I went to. He also he watched. Magoo was 10 years older than I am, so he watched Dark Shadows as a kid, but he was scared of it. He used to hide behind
Oh.
the chair in the living room. He said he used to hide because it was scary. But and we'd watch it together here and there when it was running on Sci-Fi. I don't know. It ran on Sci-Fi like three times or something like that. So
Mhm.
so I know we watched some of 1840 on there, but he liked Dark Shadows too, but he was not like obsessed with it, like I am. But yeah, and I wish, like when I think back, I wish I had watched the whole thing with him and just from start to finish. I wish we had just made that a thing that we would do together. Like I wish I kind of had shared that more with him, like I did. He knew I was that gigantic Whitman Barnabas Collins poster up hanging above our bed. It was so he knew I was a big Dark Shadows, but we just didn't like sit down and watch the whole series because we were always like, especially doing the Shilling Shocker stuff. It was always, then I was in grad school too, and he worked, the bookstore. We were doing Shilling Shockers at night. We were doing a radio show too. So we were always constantly doing stuff. But yeah, in retrospect, I do wish we had done that. But he was a great werewolf. I think Chris Jennings would have been proud of Magoo, aka Garou.
I think he would have given a howl of approval.
Ah,
Yeah. So we'll, wrap up here. Did you have anything that you wanted to add? Anything that you want to tell people?
well, I hope everyone listening to this, if you're at the 60th anniversary event, come over and say hello. I would love to meet you and say hi and chit chat. And if you enjoyed Dark Shadows podcast, which there are quite a few now, and you're the newest member of the club, but we have quite a few. Check out all the Dark Shadows podcasts out there. Terror at Collinwood is the one I've been doing for a few years now. There's several other ones out there between the shadows. Just check them all out. And if you want to do a Dark Shadows podcast, like Catherine has launched here wonderfully, do it. If you do, go for it. Or some Dark Shadows let Dark Shadows inspire you to do something cool. Uh, I would say that. And yeah, and if you're at uh, in Atlanta at in the second weekend of August. I'll be there as Penny Dreadful. And in April, April 20, gosh, not the second weekend, the third weekend of April, I will be at Monster Expo in Fairhaven, Massachusetts as Penny Dreadful. So I'll be in Scarehaven on that third weekend of April, rather. So come on over. I'll have some goodies at my table there too. And yeah, so I know that's all I could think of to say. I don't know if I should plug things, but that's I
No,
guess I plug.
you can plug whatever you want.
Yeah. Yes, that I have plugged. I have let there be plugs. But yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
Lastly, anyone who is going to the Dark Shadows 60th event or to the event in Atlanta, Monster Drama, any kind of convention, if it's their first event, their first convention, what advice do you have for them, for anyone going to something like this for the first time?
Well, you've had some great segments with your friend giving advice to people who go to the conventions. I think that's a great way to provide tips for people. But I would say, uh, be be patient, because there are going to be a lot of people there, and there are going to be lines for certain things, for like autographs, probably from the actors. The actors are in their 80s, and some, Jerry Lacey just turned 90, I believe Marie Wallace is also 90-ish. So, some of these lines may be a little slower. The actors may not be there at all times, so uh, uh, check in. I know there are going to be a lot of people there, so just be patient and be respectful of other fans, which I know is not going to be a problem with Dark Shadows fans. I'm sure everybody's going to be very nice. I'd say that. And also have water on you. It can get, I remember at the Remembrance event, there was in that lobby area there, it was kind of warm. And one of it's like, have water, have a water bottle on you. I think that's always a good idea at a convention to do that. So yeah, I would say that.
Awesome. Well, I am so thankful that you joined me today, and I'm so excited to see you coming up here in a few months. And thank
Can't
you
wait.
again.
Can't wait. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure chatting with you again, Catherine. And I look forward to seeing you in person in July, at the end of July. It's just right around the corner. We're almost there. So we'll be here before we know it. And I can't wait to see you and see everyone else there. And we'll party and dance in the back room at the Blue Whale.
Yes, and I hope to have you on again. I'm hoping to do a episode talking about the parties at Seaview, so I'd like to have you on for that. I also want to do an episode talking about the ghosts of Seaview, so I'd like to have you for that. And I don't even know what all else yet, but I'm sure there'll be several.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we will talk for sure. But great. That's
Awesome.
great. Sounds like you have a lot of cool episodes lined up.
We'll see. I've got so much going on in my head, and just trying to schedule people, and so we'll see what I get around to doing.
Awesome. Cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you again. And
use those magic hands, magic man. You've got a special power no one understands. Well, perhaps this one does, and wants more of your warlock love. In a cloud of black smoke you came to me, frightened at first though I gave in. You brought me down to my knees with your black arts and knowledge of sin. Use those magic hands, magic man. You've got a special power no one understands. Well, perhaps this one does, and wants more of your warlock love. You're the epitome of cool, always where it's happening. Everyone wants
My name is Penny Dreadful. The great house stands as it has for over 200 years, haunted by the spirits of the past and by the demons of tomorrow. But now a horror unlike any other shall pass through the doors of the lugubrious house on the hill. On this fateful night, I have come to pay a visit to my relatives. Welcome to Penny Dreadful's Shilling Shockers. Tonight, truly terrifying terror shall be unleashed as we present the terrifying film of terror known as The Terror. My relatives are expecting us for brandies in the drawing room.
Oh, brandies! Wait. Those are your relatives?
Yes?
Accursed! Accursed! Vile witch! This place makes me all itchy.
Oh, you too, Garou. Well, too bad. We're going to go visit my relatives. Meanwhile, you enjoy the terror with Boris Karloff. Now come on, you schmucks.
You betrayed me!
But we didn't really mean anything by it, dear cousin. You rotten, blood-sucking son of a...
Knall! Horrid vampire, take this! Oh, dreadful! This is the last time I visit your buck-toothed cousin and your wretched relatives. That house is full of vampires and werewolves and witches and zombies and creatures.
Well, you're the one who challenged my cousin to a drinking contest.
Bah! I challenged him to drink some brandy, not Bloody Marys. And besides, it was your hairy husband here who chewed up the Afghan and got into the howling contest with the weird guy with the sideburns like the Elvis. And besides, it was you who said, witches rule, vampires drool. That one got old Barney really hot on the collar.
Yeah, Angelique rules. Well, you're right, I suppose. Relatives can be such a pain in the neck. Hey, I know this great tavern in town. Let's go there and get potted.
Now you're talking, Vichy.
Down with relatives!
Cha, you tell him, buddy. Down with relatives!
Another round, Bob. And now back to the terror, starring Boris Karloff. Karloff.
What would you do with a drunken sailor? What would you do with a drunken sailor? What would you do with a drunken sailor? Their body. Look! It's a wolf that drinks like the fish. What would you do with a drunken sailor? What would you do with a drunken
Join us next
sailor?
week for Penny Shilling's dreadful shocker.
Early in the morning.
I'm afraid Maggie Evans is going out of her mind.
I have a friend. A secret friend. And that's the best kind to have. But she's a special secret friend. And she comes to play with me.
She is beyond hope of redemption. She's begun to babble and behave in a childlike way.
Yes.
We play catch and we have fun together.
I'm afraid Maggie Evans will never fit into my plans. She must be disposed of.
I have a little friend that only I can see. She's a little girl who comes to play with me. Sometimes she sings a song, sometimes she has a ball. She wears a little bonnet and carries a doll. My friend gave me a riddle that I don't understand. I have to find the answer and escape this dark man. This man says he will hurt me if I don't become Josette. But my name is Maggie. The sun's about to set. I only see him after dark. He scares me more and more. Where did you go, little girl? At last I found the door. And blindly now I'm running. Will this tunnel never end? My name is Maggie Evans. I have a little friend.
Welcome to the Collinsport Record Shop. I'm Catherine, and I make music. When I'm not recording with Song Telephone, I put out music under Discount Artificial Sweetener. Echoes of the Past. Songs inspired by the 1897 storyline of Dark Shadows, Volume 1. With such songs as Beth's Dilemma. It's hard to find good help these days, and when they're torn between duty and temptation, well, it makes for a lot of drama and a great musical number.
There's no place for Quentin Collins in my life. He'll never get what he wants from me if I do not resist him.
Hellfire. Lawyer Evan Hanley and Quentin Collins have a raucous night in their boys' club.
An orgy of sin, a delectable feast. Hellfire, hellfire, we each have a tattoo of the mark of the beast.
I'm but a poor shepherd. Trask. Gregory Trask. Ugh.
I can't fathom what drives them to want to leave my herd.
And we'll take the hand. Magda, realizing her curse puts her family in danger. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a haunting melody to play on an old gramophone.
I'm a cat, yes I'm a cat. I'm a villain, a rake. I'm so very, very bad. A ne'er-do-well, a snake. A bad one, yes I am. The black sheep of the family and a dangerous man. Black magic is my hobby. I'm a knave by trade. Sometimes for profit, sometimes for play, sometimes for pleasure. Sin's my middle name. Won't you come into my parlor and play a little game? I'm the big bad wolf, the villain of the storybooks, and with your looks, my dear, you're not safe with me. If you find yourself in trouble, well, I never claimed to love you. You can try, but I doubt you'll get a penny from my family. In a night of revelry, I tied the knot. It's a noose, but I still have my fun. And as for fidelity, no, I think not. I couldn't be content with only one. Edward and Judith can judge till they rot. All I need is the love of Jameson. And I've just had a hell of a time. My paramour burned before my eyes. She also happened to be my brother's wife. But I've come home to my familiar life, and they say Grandmama will soon die. Come into my parlor, said the spider to the fly.
Fight and bring back what I had before. Back when I had humanity, I had a soul. If I have you, then I'll feel whole. If I have you, then I'm in control.
Welcome home, cousin. Welcome.